The Introvert's Edge podcast was designed to create a dialogue around introversion, to stimulate a discussion around our disadvantages, how we overcome those disadvantages, and what we consider our introvert's edge. Together, we're finally going to confront the stigma around introversion, showing that we're not second-class citizens, we're just different, and we need to embrace that. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Introvert's Edge. And I'm ecstatic to introduce a good friend of mine, Jennifer Kahnweiler, who has authored two amazing books. Well, multiple books, but two of my personal favorites, Quiet Influence and The Genius of Opposites. And I have to say, she's actually an extrovert, but she's got so many great strategies. So while, I generally only let introverts on this show, the strategies that she's used is so helpful. And she talks about in detail the principles around how introverts can be successful in leadership. So I'm really excited to welcome her to the show. Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, Matt, it's my pleasure. I'm so happy that you are having this show. It's a great service you're providing.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm honored to have another CSP. We're both CSP speakers from the National Speakers Association as well. And my first CSP speaker on the podcast. So it's also another honor to have you on.
Most of the world that doesn't know what our designation is that we work so hard for, but nobody seems to know what it means. But it's certified speaking professional. So we're in a small percentage of we're very honored, I'm sure you are too, to be part of it in the National Speakers Association.
Definitely. And I think and we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about speaking because we've had a lot of segments on speaking. We're going to be focusing on leadership, but I have to say I was surprised just how many people that are in the CSP club, the most professional of professional speakers. Again, speaking is something that everybody assumes is an extroverted skill set, that are actually introverted themselves and still amazing. They have amazing stage presence.
Incredible. And the more we learn about actors and performers of all kinds, a majority of those, Matt, as you know, are actually introverted. The strengths of introverts like preparation and planning and just complete diligence gets them ready to get on the stage and to be extroverted for that time.
I'm constantly shocked. I constantly find new people that I see them on the stage like, amazing, must be an extrovert, totally introverted. And again, the difference is that they just want to sleep afterwards. It takes their energy. It doesn't make any difference to their performance style. It's like Jim Cathcart, great friend of mine, ex-president of the National Speakers Association. When he's done, he wants to go party. I want to go into a dark room. And I think that's the only difference in our delivery methods are actually quite similar. We both tell stories from stage, though I don't think I'm quite at his skill set yet. I think he's our most award-winning speaker ever. But the major difference is basically how we recharge. But enough about speaking. Let's get into the hot topic, because a lot of people that have been watching this show over time have heard some great advice on how to network and how to speak publicly. And I think Ryan had some great detail around how to be a strong leader. But I'm really excited about having you on, Jennifer, because I know you spent a lot of time looking at how introverts can be great leaders. And I really just want to go, well, firstly, how did you get into that and talking about this topic?
It started for me, Matt, with my own relationship. I married an introvert many years ago, and I was very perplexed to why he wouldn't show the same enthusiasm, after we go on social outings as I did and want to talk about all the things that were happening. And until I actually fortunately took an instrument called the Myers-Briggs shortly into our marriage, that really helped me understand more about this personality type. As I started working in organizations in leadership and coaching roles, I would continually find that I was supporting introverts who after many years, oftentimes, of being, sort of ignored and overlooked and misunderstood, passed over, was really taking a hit on their self-esteem, on their confidence, and they really saw that. It's almost like an oxymoron to say that you could be an introvert and be a leader, because as many of them would share with me, I don't see people that look like me, Matt, like in leadership roles. They're, sort of outgoing and rattling those sabers and just being very extroverted, if you will. But in fact, as we know, anywhere between 40 and 60% of people in the workplace are introverted, and certainly many people in C-level and senior positions. So that's sort of how it started from the personal, and then went to the professional. And it really, these are all skills and insights that we have both at home and at work.
Well, Jennifer, I'm interested because you are an extrovert yourself, but you teach introverts how to be strong leaders. And as an introvert, I'm a big believer myself that we're different and we should just embrace that. But now that I've embraced my introversion, and if I want to be a leader, a lot of introverts think they shouldn't be in leadership roles, they should just be the person doing the work. And I've seen some amazing introverted leaders. To be an introverted leader, does that mean I need to become more extroverted? Do I need strategies to be perceived as more extroverted, or can I embrace my natural talents to be a great leader?
The improv people use an expression, yes, and. I think it's both, really, yes and both. But I do come from what the first thing that you said, or in your discussion just now, Matt, about not becoming an extrovert. I found in my research, I interviewed for the Introverted Leader, I interviewed and questioned over 100 leaders across many different industries. And also for Quiet Influence, which was the book that followed, I did a very similar process. I used a very similar process. And the main theme that kept coming out was that, yes, we have quiet strengths, and the effective ones use those strengths really well. That said, we still live in a world that's very extroverted. Our workplaces expect us to socialize, as you said, to be out there speaking. But we can still use our strengths, all of us, extroverts and introverts, to really get to the point of leadership. There's certain capabilities that we need. And so what I found the successful ones do is they apply those strengths that they have to these the typical and challenging leadership scenarios. So for instance, you mentioned public speaking, even coaching. An introvert who's leading, a big part of their job is coaching, right? You have to get the best out of people. Well, typically successful introverted leaders don't wing it. They've come with questions. They've done a little research on the person they're coaching. They're organized. All the things that make introverts shine, they use. And that's what I found consistently, that they take those skills that have made them successful in business and their functional area, whether it be finance or marketing, and they use those skills and apply them to interpersonal and communication situations. So that's why I say yes and, because you still have to flex, as you know. More and more I'm seeing, thank God, I'm glad to see this, that extroverts are realizing that, and the research really says this, that they need to be quiet and listen more. And that way they're going to get more productivity out of their team. So that's an introvert strength. So we're not there yet where we're seeing extroverts needing to, shift. They're still going, and a lot of them don't think they need it, but we're seeing the needle change a little on that area. So that's kind of where I think about that in terms of stop trying to be an extrovert, but embrace who you are.
That's brilliant, Jennifer. And thank you for sharing that. I just am thinking of a person that maybe they've been in a job for a long time. Maybe they've been offered management positions in the past and turn them down because they don't want to do it, or they're scared to do that. Or maybe they just don't see that it's something that they can do for themselves. What would you say to those people? And then if you could talk them into becoming strong managers and leaders, what strategies would you suggest they start with to continue on their journey of actually becoming a successful leader?
Well, again, I want to come from the viewpoint that I see myself, Matt, as the conduit for sharing the lessons that I've learned from successful introverts. I want to be really careful to say, just because I'm an extrovert, I'm not going to tell an introvert how to do it. But these are lessons that really I have gained from these highly successful introverted leaders. And I found that their success strategies basically came into 4 different buckets. And just for the ease of memory, I call those the 4 Ps. And I know there are other 4 Ps in marketing and that kind of thing. But I own these 4 Ps for this particular piece of the puzzle. The first P is to prepare. And so I mentioned that several times in our discussion, but that is one of the aces in the hole for introverts. They come with questions. They come thinking about what their strategy is going to be. And that is so tremendous when you're entering meetings, when you're talking with people you're not comfortable with, even as you talked about networking, right? And really figuring out who's going to be at the event, and even doing a little research. I had one guy who was extremely introverted, and he basically he was a salesperson. And he actually found out what the board was of the guy that he was trying to pitch to on the charity. And he basically got the sale because he had done his research. Now, I'm not saying an extrovert wouldn't do that, but an introvert's more likely, right? So preparation. The second thing is presence. Once you've prepared and you've done all the thoughtful analysis, which you do very well as an introvert, what they tend to do is then they're there. They're listening, they're present. They're not worrying about, am I going to get the sale? Or, did I do enough preparation on this? No, they're there, and they're picking. That way they're able to connect with the audience, to connect with the person they're trying to relate to one-on-one. So that being in the moment, I'm not saying introverts are like always great at that, but when they are, that's when they get the feedback all the time. It's like, God, they really helped me with my problem. And the introvert will say to you, well, I didn't say anything. I basically just was there with them. But people pick up on that, don't they? On that authenticity, on that being real in the moment. And then the third one is push. I just had a guy write me an email that he's preparing for a TED Talk kind of a thing in his company. And he said, I realize, in talking with you, that's the piece that's been missing. I haven't been pushing myself. I know I can do a great job on this, but I've got to push myself. So don't we all? To stretch and to grow. And so they continually are pushing themselves. So not pushing themselves so much that it's like going to give you, painful muscles the next day, like when you work out too hard. But that just enough that it's a little bit uncomfortable, because we all know that's how we grow. And so again, those successful introverted leaders told me that they did that. And I watched them do that in many ways. And then the fourth area is practice, is continuing to refine and hone the skills and really have a discipline plan to do that. So those would be the 4 steps that I would say that, people can go to. It's all in the Introverted Leader. I have a lot of tips and strategies to support those. And I also think it's really important to have a coach or a mentor to help you, particularly when things get tough, and to keep pushing you and to keep challenging you and keep telling you that you're doing it great.
It's funny, all the different guests we've had on the show, they all talk about the fact that they had to push themselves, they had to prepare, they had to follow all your strategies. It didn't come naturally. But now they enjoy a lot of those things. They're things that they would never normally have done. And a lot of introverts stay I'm just going to stay in a quiet room by myself, or I'm going to stay in my little cubicle. I'm not going to come outside my comfort zone. But wow, the introverts that I've seen, the successful ones, they are so glad that they did it. And I think that you're correct, that sometimes it's having a coach, it's having a strategy that you implement, effectively, continuously improving to get to a point where you are comfortable. Because a lot of people now say, I think I'm becoming more extroverted. Well, no, you've just got great strategies now, so you're enjoying the process. You're an introvert that doesn't consider that an extroverted behavior anymore.
You don't consider an extroverted behavior. I will say, however, that you may never feel totally comfortable. In fact, most of them said, I'm never going to feel like it's easy for me to just go up to people and talk. But then they look at people who have very low social skill, very poor social skills. You know what? I've really been working at this, and now I can start a conversation. So you can track your progress. But it's just like extroverts. I finished I was working very diligently on this new manuscript for the revision of the Introverted Leader. And I found myself, Matt, by the end, I needed to just go out of the house and talk to anybody, an extrovert, because I can do it on the opposite side of an introvert. I can discipline myself to be alone, but then my batteries need to be charged up by being with people. Whereas the extrovert, the introvert, like you said earlier, they'll go be acting sort of quote extroverted, but yet then they definitely need, right? Don't you find that?
Yeah, and I think that's actually really interesting, Jennifer, because what you just highlighted was the fact that you have to discipline yourself to do introverted activities of like sitting down and writing and doing those sorts of things. I'd love for you to share with that, because introverts tend to focus a lot on the negatives around being an introvert, and they don't realize that extroverts actually have negatives as well that they have to discipline themselves to do.
The whole theme about any overuse of a strength becomes a weakness. Now, I wrote about that in Quiet Influence, and I was surprised that people were really interested in those parts. Like, for instance, too much quiet time, like you were saying, Matt. You can really isolate that way, right? You can do too much of it. You can get in your head so that nobody's ever hearing your ideas.
Well, I think the best example, Beth Below, was on the show as well. And she said with her, she can disappear into her world for a long period of time. But then afterwards, occasionally she's like, I've got to go and speak to somebody because I'm in my own space and I've forgotten what the world even looks like. So yeah, you're right. There's balance of scale. And an extrovert, they can talk and sell lots of stuff, but then they've got to get stuff done and they've got to focus on that. And listening sometimes doesn't come as easily, and all those little things that extroverts struggle with that are natural for introverts. So everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, and we all need to find strategies.
Exactly. And we all know, I think the positive news now is that we really are talking about introversion and extroversion, Matt, as a spectrum. That, we all have these qualities within us. So what you were describing before, it's like using those muscles. I'll use that physical example again. You're strengthening those muscles. But it doesn't mean, as you say, you're going to become an extrovert. You're not becoming, you're acting as if, so it gets more comfortable. It's like breaking one hand and you get to learn how to use it, but the penmanship is never going to look as good, So to adapt. And I think that's really, really true. So I like to look at it as a spectrum, and that we know that most people are not extreme. I always laugh, I say, except for my husband, who's an extreme introvert, and we all have those friends who are extreme extroverts, who never stop, who never reflect, who are constantly needing that stimulus. That can go out of control too, right? So, but we all can pick and choose from different parts of the spectrum as to what we need to do. And folks will often say to me, I don't know if I'm an introvert, extrovert. They're really obsessed about it, and it's really not about that. It's not about the label as much as to me, as it is about, are the behaviors serving you or not? So what do I need to pull in to help me be more effective at my job or in my life?
I think that's really valuable information. And yeah, definitely utilize your strengths and work on your weaknesses and get yourself to where you need to be. And look, Jennifer, I'd love for you to just share a little bit about where people can find out more information about you and the new books that you have coming out.
Well, people can go to my website, Matt, and I'm very active on social media, including Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, the three, I guess. My last name is Kahnweiler. It's a little hard, but once you know it, it's Kahnweiler. Jennifer is the first name. And so, I have The Genius of Opposites is the latest book that came out 2 years ago. And that's about how we get along as introverts and extroverts, so that we're better exponentially, the two of us. But how do you get those partnerships to work? And so then Quiet Influence is another one that we mentioned today in the broadcast. I'm doing a little show and tell here, if that's okay. Trying to use your sales person type of strategy. And how do we, as an introvert's guide to making a difference? So it's all about using quiet skill. Your six key strengths that I found introverts use to change the organization, to inspire people, challenge the status quo, and how they do it as introverts. So again, using interviews, you'll see lots of case examples. And then the one that I was just mentioning that I just finished was the Introverted Leader, the new edition. The first one came out in 2009. And there's been a lot of research and a lot of stories and anecdotes I've picked up along the way as I've been out here talking about this topic. So I've included all of that in the new edition, which will be out March 6th.
So Jennifer, look, I'm really excited that you're on the show, and thank you for sharing so much great detail.
Thank you so much for the privilege of being with you.
Very happy to have you. And for people that want to grab a little bit more detail on Jennifer and perhaps struggle to find her online, please just go to theintrovertsedge.com/Jen, Jen, and you'll be able to find her on the site. There'll be some show notes there for you, and you'll be able to click directly from there across to her website as well. But thank you so much for joining us today, And if you've enjoyed this episode, please make sure you subscribe, post your review to help more and more introverts find out about this podcast and so that they can start becoming more successful in their business and in their life. But thank you again for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Cheers. I'm on a mission to empower introverts to be proud of who we are. Introverts have had to deal with the stigma that we just can't be as successful in business or in sales as our extroverted counterparts. We're different, and we need to embrace that.
I instinctively shied away from sales. I didn't want to be a salesperson.
My closing ratio has gone from 15% up to close to 80%.
We nearly quadrupled the number of meetings set with clients.
Your book was a great revelation to me about me.
I've been fortunate to receive some endorsements from some exceptional introverts. They've shared with me how much they resonated with the stories of these real people and how they transformed to being sales masters.
It talks about the things that make an introvert successful.
Every book was written for extroverts, and there needed to be something for us. Get your copy of The Introvert's Edge today.